Welcome everybody to the Key to Games podcast here on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. I'm of course Josh Beiser, and joining me as my co-host, indie game designer working on the upcoming game Samurai Pig, Joshua Reyes. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Been a busy week. A lot of optimizing on Samurai Pig, dealing with some strange weather. Like I said, it was flooding this morning, and then now the sun's out. It's so strange weather. Busy week. How are you doing, Josh? Well,
Yep, I am hanging in there, just like trying to keep busy and focus on things.
I
But I
hear
still
that.
feel like drained this summer. I think it's just
Yeah,
all the calls and the books and the videos and everything is just like starting to take its toll a little bit.
I feel that. I feel that. I need a little. I'm ready for summer to be done with. Get. Let's get to fall.
Hello, Joe. Thanks for stopping by. So, we got a topic I am very interested in talking about, as we're going to be discussing dark side monetization and what it means for the game industry, not just in the mobile space, but in general game dev. And, of course, a big reason for this is that my next book is due out in about 2 weeks. That is Game Design Deep Dive Free to Play. So, in honor of that, everyone should buy at least 10 copies of the book. You have to do a 10 pool on the book.
Right.
On
Yeah, ten pool. That's right.
But dark side monetization is definitely a major point, as well as with the kind of like ethical concerns when it comes to monetization. When I pitched the idea to Josh, he sent me this like dystopian image of like the last tweet ever made, and it was, I think, too dark for this one, but I think it's a really great one for when we have another like horror of game dev.
Yeah, there you go. We'll do it. Yeah, the true life of game dev.
There you go, exactly. But a few weeks ago, I did a design post about player-friendly design, and that was kind of like the most ethical or fairest way you could design a mobile or live service game. What we're talking about today is the opposite of that. We are discussing all the ways that a game can be not so ethically designed. And this is one of those big points about how mobile and live service games have really changed, or really have adopted a lot of these practices over the past, we could say maybe 12 to maybe 13 years, give or take.
Yeah, it is really just like not set in stone now, but it's just so prevalent. It's so accepted, and we have like gamers growing up. Like my kid right now is growing up with this type of monetization like in front of him right now. So we have this is like people don't have not seen games made any other way than this way, right? So it's definitely a whole new era that we're in.
hmm And that is a very big point, as when, what was it, the ESA or the EFA, I forget which one does their yearly, what was it, tallies or their yearly reviews of the game industry. More people play mobile games these days than any other platform. And we're talking, I think, like 45 to 50% of overall playtime is on a mobile or smartphone device, with casual puzzle games being one of the more popular genres of this. So it is here to stay. And I like the first point, of course, is that anyone thinking that free to play and mobile games are going to die, it's not happening outside of government intervention at this point, as we talk
Right.
about the loot box bill.
Right. Yeah, and just to put that nail in the coffin, like Blizzard just got 100 million in like revenue for Diablo Immortal, right? So like that would have been a time for like the most hardcore gamers to push back and fight with their wallet, and it was this kind of unsettling acceptance that we noticed, that I seem to notice with a lot of like YouTubers and overall gamers, more like of an apathetic acceptance of it instead of like, actually fighting for it. So yeah, it is definitely here to stay from now on until there's not going to be a giant, EA is not going to have a change of conscience. Blizzard's not going to say, oh, we're making too much money now, this is way too predatory, this we can't, we gotta, make it a little easier on these kids. And no, it's not going to happen.
hmm And that again is where we get to kind of like the push and pulls of live service design. Because there's a lot of people who will just immediately equate anything as dark side, pay to win, it's horrible, we need to destroy this game. Because there's people who will defend these practices to the death, saying, "Oh, it's fine. The developer needs to make money." Think of the poor developer who's selling $30 loot boxes and $20 piece skins and all that.
Yeah, it's really tough for them. Very tough,
Mm-hmm.
Josh. Yeah,
Diablo Immortal, they're really sad right now.
right. And again, like the morality of it, that it's just uh we're going to definitely have to have some type of intervention by the government to help get there. Otherwise, this is what we're looking at. So now we got to talk about what can we do, Josh, and
Mm-hmm.
for game designers to think about and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And as I said in the book, and as I talk about in some of my pieces here, that it is fair for developers to get money for making content, whether that is, releasing a soundtrack, a new character skin, DLC, stuff like that. But when it goes to the point where you're manipulating someone, or you're tricking or conditioning them in order to get them to spend money, that's when we get a little bit, I think, beyond the pale. And it's one of those things, again, that for a lot of people, I think a lot of consumers in general, it's very hard, I think, for them to see the forest for the trees. And again, a lot of that has been done intentionally.
Yeah.
We see this with the kind of obscuring the currencies, multiple currencies, multiple resources, battle passes, season passes, loot boxes, and so on. It's all designed to confuse you into what are you actually spending money on.
Right. And not only like to confuse you but what you've already spent it, right? So you've already spent it, converted it into gems, to orbs,
Mm-hmm.
platinum, whatever. And so the value has already been kind of lost, right? It's been converted. And so now you have multiple currencies, right? So you have to keep track of these currency exchange rates. How does it work? Sometimes you can acquire some of the currencies for free, right? So it's this huge amalgamation of like keeping track of all these hard metrics and things for the currencies that make it really hard for the player, right? So instead of a player simply just saying, I want to pay $6 for this thing, you've obfuscated it and made it very deliberately, intentionally hard for the player to understand the value of what they're actually spending through using gems and through using orbs and things like that, right? With multiple currencies. So,
Oh no, Joe, you better get on that about getting the money with the battle passes. Yep, and what we've seen from a lot of developers or a lot of these games is this idea of we're just going to keep confusing the player, or we're
right.
trying to make it so that, $99 is the best offer, or you're never able to just directly see what it's actually costing you. They'll, always be like 2 to 3 layers deep. Like, first you have to get the currency, then you have to translate the currency back into dollars, and then you have to, do the quick math of what is 10 of this is equal to. And when you do that, it is very scary in terms of how much money these things are costing you, and
Yeah.
hence the point about why it's being obscure like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure at the very start it was real easy. Okay, well you pay 99 cents to play again or whatever. Like, and it was, but they found out through ossification, like it's similar things, tactics. You just use tactics that they use from a casino or things like that, right? You just poker chips. You go and you take your money, you convert it to poker chips. So when you're playing, you're not playing with money, you're playing with something else. So it's like devalued to
Mm-hmm.
you in a way, right? You're not, it's not the same thing as holding that money, or it's not the same thing as actually processing that payment. So it's obfuscating it that way is really deliberately bad way to do it, right? And again, it's just going to get worse and worse, and they're going to find new ways to do it.
Mm-hmm. So, as a quick example of this, so the game that I'm playing, Arc Knights, right now, they're having a very big summer event, limited time gacha, special pools, all that good, expensive stuff. So, as I said in a previous thing, it costs $3.30 to do one pool. So, right now they have a pity for these characters at 300 pools. So a quick math or a quick calculation says that if you want to go to pity for one of these characters, it is $990 per character if you don't get lucky with the gotcha.
Wow. See, so that's where the standardization also has to come into play that we were talking about previously,
Mm-hmm.
right? Characters can only be worth so much, but again, I think that's kind of like giving up the fight there a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we kind of like we need these predatory practices need to be reined in and controlled
Mm-hmm.
because like really like we're taking all of what a game is and we're turning it into a casino instead, right? A
Mm-hmm.
profit generating machine, a property generating machine, soon to hopefully not be created by AI, right? And that'll be like the worst one, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
like that's like one of my secret deep dark nightmares is that it's AI generated video games created like Skinner box type, with battle passes and season passes. And like if we don't, stand up enough for, and with our wallets and also indie designers and game developers try and take onus for it and at least try and make some change, then we're going to be facing a dark time. We already are, but
Mm-hmm. And to Joe's question, yeah, when the game dies, it's kind of like what happens to a casino when it goes under with all the
yeah,
chips you have.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. There was someone in Saudi spent like 1 million on Clash of Clans, and I was like, wow, what happens when it shuts down? And
Mm-hmm. And the problem for a lot of this, again, is that when these games, as to what Joshua said, like you can kind of feel like the tendrils of the monetization around the design. That it's not, and I think this is one of those big differences between like kind of dark side and light side. That when we talk about the light side or player friendly design, the monetization is kind of kept separate from the act of playing the game. If I
right,
want to spend, $10 for a new character or buy an expansion, that's not directly impacting the actual play of the game. When we talk about this, you can kind of see the monetization affecting all aspects of the core gameplay loop, of progression, of how all this is supposed to play. And that's when it gets very manipulative. Um, on the thumbnail, I included Thanos from Marvel's Contest of Champions. This was a game that this I think is at least 7 or 8 years old in terms of being a live service game. Like, it was one of like the first bigger mobile games to blow up. So I decided to download it again after giving up on it a few months ago or a few years ago, and it is so much of a far cry in terms of what we see from kind of more modern, or I should say modern-ish mobile games. Like we talk about when I say like the third generation. In this one, it's just they constantly limit how much energy you have, so we have fun paint elements. The game even has the AI, or the game will procedurally generate deals based on any time you get something good. It will give you a limited time offer to get you to spend more money. And the entire game just feels, again, like you're not really playing the game, you're battling the house. And of
right.
course, the house is always going to win.
Always wins. Always wins. I remember you saying that there's some streamers and some gamers who like to like min max free to play games, right? Like that's the thing. See how much they can get out of it. Uh, but still, that's just um,
Yep, and that is one of those big points. Like I was watching I think it's a channel, Contest of Champions. I think they're on YouTube that they do free to play challenges, and in 7 days he can basically do months of progress in this
wild.
game. But that comes with knowing exactly what purchases to spend your in-game currency on, what characters you need to roll, what events you need to do. And this, I think, is another big point because a lot of people, a lot of defenders of these games will say, well, if someone can play free to play on all the free characters and they never spend money, then it's not manipulative. But it is. Like, just because somebody is the pro player and doesn't need these characters doesn't mean these games aren't being designed to manipulate people. And this is one of the things I talked about in that piece, that it's not for people like us, like people who
Right.
are hardcore gamers. We know how to min max. we know how to break these games. It's for people who are sitting there staring at, this 2%, 6-star character pool and thinking that my life is ruined
My
if
life
I
is
don't
ruined.
get this. So I need
Yeah.
to, max out my credit card and hopefully get this character.
Right. And then hopefully I can find happiness. But that's right. Like these games are psychologically designed to prey on people who are vulnerable to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
They know how to design it to get you, like you said, I'll get that character, everything will be fine. I can finally win this match and it'll be great. You know what I mean? Max out your card, all that stuff. But yeah, these are all like preying on the vulnerable, like me and
Mm-hmm.
you. Most people won't be affected, but the people that are like, I think it said like I read one statistic, 1 in 10 relationships end due to like whale behavior, like in video games. So like that's a pretty bad statistic right there of like ending
Mm-hmm.
marriages and ending relationships over people spending on these predatory tactics. It's just like gambling, but it's in your phone. It's right there. It's it's
Mm-hmm.
gambling, but you don't really win that much.
And my grandmother is a hardcore gambler, and thankfully she doesn't know how to use a smartphone or a computer. Or
Yes, yes. I have a grandma like that. I'd be scared to get rid of the smartphone. Here, play this one, grandma.
mm-hmm. And the problem again with this kind of manipulation is that all these mobile games will always have those kind of fake purchases. Those ones that are just like the sucker's bet. Spend $400 and get 500 currency, the best deal. Like for like the organized game that I play, I spend the $4.99 month for kind of like a free resources and that's pretty much as I feel like I'm spending in. Like I'm not spending $100 a month or $50 a
Right.
week on that game because I'm trying to get the most out of that money. Again, this is what we talk about with people who know what they're doing in these games. They know exactly how much to spend to get the most out of their value. It's why people who do like free to play challenges or all 3 to 4 star challenges, they know exactly how to play these games. They know how to quote unquote, beat the system in that regard. But that is a very tall order. That is not the norm of these games. The norm is you spend months and weeks and years and maybe a decade trying to get all 6 stars on your account or get past this challenge. And the game is entirely weighted against you all the way through.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and like that type of design, like I mean, like if we're talking about design, like if you want to go step backwards and talk about design, the whole design
Mm-hmm.
of that's completely broken, right? Like your game should not be designed on predatory practices, right? The whole core of
Mm-hmm.
it is predatory, then it's not really a game or meant for like the general public to consume, or probably shouldn't even be that safe. Like I think it would be like you could wonder how safe is Diablo Immortal to people's like wallets and people's relationships, and like how much has it affected people in that way who are vulnerable. And we're not talking
Mm-hmm.
about, again, not the streamers who are min maxing it and doing the speed runs of Diablo Immortal and all that, but like actually the people who have houses and bills and gambling issues. And just like you said, all it takes is someone with a gambling issue and boom, that's it. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, Josh.
And again, it's kind of like that difference between like consumers and the hardcore when it comes to video games. Like we know how to stretch our dollars. We know about Humble and Fanatical and
Hmm.
all that. And I can't even remember the last time I actually spent like $60 on a single game.
Yeah, yeah. It's been
But
a
then
while.
you like talk to someone who's a general consumer, and they're like, "What? What is Humble? What is Steam?" There are probably still people who don't know what Steam are.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And it's the same thing with these titles. There's a reason why a lot of these games are aimed at the casual audience, because casual gamers aren't as educated in terms of monetization, gameplay loops, and designs like us. And again, that's not so much as that's not me trying to insult people, that's just understanding what these games are. And it's why there is a difference between someone who, spends $50, $100 a week on a game or a month, or a streamer or someone who plays these games hardcore who can do everything or so much more, maybe only spending $2, maybe even just having one $5 purchase gets them months and months of progress because they know exactly where to focus their money on.
Yeah, and also like the game, like that's their job for the streamer. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
job for the general consumer, right? Like
Yep.
at all. So they're way at the disadvantage. It's again, the house is built, it's stacked against them. It's built against them.
Yep. And another big point about that, and this is something that I see a lot of people also defend, is when you get to the end game, when you are one of those accounts that has all 6 stars or all 5 stars, and you're able to do so much in those games without spending any more money. Again, the problem is twofold. How much money did they spend to get to that point?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the chance that a general consumer will ever reach that level? And we see this with a lot of PvP driven games, where, yes, everyone at the highest level, they're not spending any more money, but they probably spent several hundred, even several $1,000s to get their account to that point. And
Exactly.
it becomes very much a case of the rich getting richer. Because once you have one of those top accounts, you can do the PvP, and the PvP will get you free resources, which you can then funnel into more characters. And I think this is where like the goal of these games are. Is that the account gets to that level where it essentially prints its own resources at that point. And again, to like a hardcore player, that's it for us. Like, we don't need to do anything else. Why should I spend money if I can make, free 10 pools every 2 weeks just by doing PvP and all that?
And also, a side note, real quick,
Mhm.
that player is also a resource too, right? Like
Mhm.
them being in the economy and doing that, they're a resource for the other players to look up to FOMO to, or to
Mhm.
interact with, right? So go ahead, Josh. Sorry, before I
Oh
forgot.
yeah, definitely. And again, it's why there is even its own economy with the streaming. That you watch professional streamers who will do 200, 300. I've seen a few do 1,000
Yeah,
pools,
yeah.
and then people donate money to get more
Donate for the
pools.
pools. That's
So
right.
again, what's stopping this chat from donating? I don't know what I can pull here, but what's stopping chat from donating for some free 10 pools of I don't know. We'll figure something out. I know me opening up my lid of water.
There you
I'll
go.
do it for
There you
$100 right there.
go. I also have one also.
There you go.
So
So you have to do double it. You have to do
limited
200.
200 limited time best offer.
Mm-hmm. You only have 10 minutes for it.
10 minutes.
And another point about this, and this is something that I always bring up when we have these discussions, is that this is not done in a vacuum. Again, you'll see people like Angry Joe, a lot of consumers and streamers who will yell, this is stupid, why do they do this? They're ruining the game, what the heck is wrong with them? They're not stupid. This is not, again, a side effect or somebody not understanding this stuff. These practices are time tested. They have been vetted and proven to work in casinos, and again, when I have Ramin on, like, people like Ramin and I who've studied these games, we know the levers. We know what we can do to make people spend money, and it is very easy to make this work. I've said this before, but if I wanted to go like full dark side and come up with like a game that's like so monetized, I could do that. I could probably ruin families, and so could Ramin, very easily with these practices. And it's why it's very important to understand what is going on behind the scenes. Why, a game throwing up best deal, or, immediately interrupting your game, or how even a game is balanced in terms of progression
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
huge deal. There was the classic game Lost Planet 2. This was, I want to say at least 13, 14 years ago. This was a game by Capcom, and it had an actual loot box mechanic. This was a retail game. There was no money involved in it. So every time you beat a level, you get a little slot machine that determines what your reward's going to be. And it got a lot of people interested in that game. Then that was then translated into what we see with loot boxes, and with gotchas and banners. And again, suddenly it's a different deal when your credit card is now the character who's being
Yeah,
used for this stuff.
definitely.
And with something like Contest of Champions, another reason why I want to bring that up, I still need to think about doing that video series about is a game pay to win or not, is that they have completely integrated the monetization into the progression of the game. That you can't just start off with 6 stars. You actually have to work your way up from 1 to 2, to 3 to 4, to 5 to 6. And that can take weeks or months of play. And what they do in this game is that they have these different passives that you can attach to fights. So all of a sudden this enemy's like, okay, I'm just going to automatically bleed your character every 5 seconds. So I hope you have a character who's bleed immune. And if you don't, well, then you'll have to keep reviving. If you have to keep reviving, that's going to cost you resources. But don't worry, you can spend premium currency to get, more healing potions. And again, it's a perfect example of consumer versus hardcore. The hardcore player knows exactly what characters they need. They know what to take in so that they don't have to spend all that. This goes again back to what we talked about with consumables and with the difference between difficulty and challenge. The whole get good. Well, in this case, it's about, getting that right character. So if I get someone who's bleed immune, that doesn't make it easy. That just basically just balances the scales. Then I gotta deal with all the other stuff. And that's how this game has all this longevity to it, because if you're not good at this game, you're not getting those characters, it is going to take a long time or a lot of money in order to boost yourself up. And in this game, I watched some of the people who do rolls and streaming this game, that the difference between a good and bad 6-star is monumental. This is a game that your account can go from here to here simply with one good character. And it's why these people, they will jump for joy on stream if they get that really good character.
Freaking out, yeah. They freak out when they get the character.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, how are you saying the progression systems? They lead you in, right? Like you start off, it's free game, and you get in there, and maybe I can beat the first one. Usually, the softer progressions, onboarding, right, get you unlock the progression, and then maybe they get you to make one purchase, like the 97-cent one or something like that, and then so you're starting to get a little sunk cost, right? Well, I've already spent a little bit, already done this, and then you. If they keep the progression right, so you won a little bit with the 97 cents, right? And you could go in a little more, and then it's like, oh, well, now I'm coming up against another player. I got to spend $5 now. Since I just spent $1, so let me spend $5, no problem. You're spending $5 now. And once you've gotten that far and you keep going and competing, and it has its tendrils and teeth in you, it's really hard to stop, right? And so, and I've seen, I've had games almost get me, where it's just like, wow, I mean, I almost kind of just want to get this best deal right now, but I don't, but yeah, they some of the tactics are just amazingly intense on
and again, we can rationalize some of these purchases in terms of how much we can get out of it. Again, if you know what is a good character, and if the game can guarantee, let's say if you spend $30, you can pick one amazing 6-star or UR character or whatever, you can rationalize that and say, well, if I do that, then I don't need to spend money for the next year on this game. But again, it's still manipulative in that fashion of of not having an actual fixed price. That, again, one of the biggest points about this is that there is no fixed value for what is a 6-star. What is a UR character cost? It's whatever the heck the game wants to charge you, and whatever your RNG is. Imagine going to a supermarket where everything has RNG pricing. You pick up an orange, it's $75. You pick up a filet mignon, it's 99 cents. Best deal.
I'm glad I got this limited time offer for filet mignon.
Yeah. And again, it's one of the things I said about in my post, that it's basically a casino that has its own rates, it handles its own currency, and it dictates every bit of value without any oversight.
Right. Yeah, and then they have the ability to Yeah, and I think worse than a casino because a casino can't really psychologically manipulate you in so many ways. Like,
It can still do it, just not as much.
not as much, right? It can't actually like the casino's not sitting next to you when you're sleeping, beeping, saying, "Hey, got a new character," you know. So yeah, definitely a lot more subversive, and it's just with you all the time. So yeah, but same thing, right? I mean, you're just taking proven techniques from the casino, putting them into the phone, something that is with you at all times. Because of course, you know, mobile's where it's at right now, really. So
Mm-hmm.
for these type of games.
Yep. And it is so easy to spend money. That's one of the biggest points about this. That, one touch Google Pay, boom, there goes $800. Again, another thing I've seen some streamers that they spend so much money in such a short period of time that the bank thought their card was
Was
stolen and they blocked the purchase. So they had to call the fraud
wow.
alert department and say, "No, I'm really spending $1,000 in this video game. Turn my card back on."
And they get more donations while they're on the phone.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, to Joe's comment, yep, it's one of the reasons why there's such a huge devaluing of video games over the last, like,
Yeah.
from what, like 2015, 2016 to maybe 2020, 2021. The whole race to the bottom or race to a
Yeah.
dollar was huge. Because again, why should I spend $40 on your game when I can play this game for free? But then when I'm playing this game for free, I'm spending, $12 a month on loot boxes. Or, I only spend, $800 at one time. But don't worry, I'm not going to spend any more.
Yeah, man. The race to the bottom, like I'm not like it really set off a whole new chain. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
games, the value of games so low and free games are just inundated with, you know, because they're free, they're inundated with such subversive practices, right? So it's just like the
Mm-hmm.
double-edged sword, you know?
Yep. And again, there's nothing wrong with earning money, but when we spot these manipulation tactics, when we can see how they are being affected, it is a huge red flag for some of these titles. That the progression, I think progression is one of the biggest, it's one of the more salient points of the book, and it's one of the hardest, I think, to get across to people. Because you don't necessarily think about how is this game being tilted to make me spend money if I'm winning, if I'm
Right.
beating every level, if I'm 3-starring every map. But when you see all of a sudden that the typically goes from here to here, or when you get introduced to some crazy thing that none of your characters can even hope to beat, or when you're forced to grind a map to hopefully get resources so you can level up something else, you start to see these elements of trying to trick you into raising that investment in the game.
Yeah, exactly. And then, man, again, it's just harping on that being such. There has to be other ways to design your game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without, you know, there's a good way, right? There's a good way to monetize your game. I think that was like our last podcast, right? We are talking about proper
Mm-hmm.
monetization of your game. And this is the dark side. Like just any monetization of this, like I don't see how you can defend it in any way, right?
Yeah. And again, I think what you just said is a very important point that we've seen games that do fairer monetization. Path
Yeah.
of Exile is a really big example. Warframe, despite having one of the largest in game stores, is still very fair in how you play it. But the point, again, is that this stuff works. There's a reason why Diablo Immortal has earned 100 million. There's a reason why Genshin Impact, I think, is either number one or in top five of gacha games or best selling mobile games in the world right now. This stuff works. And again, it's the reason why casinos make lots of money. A casino that, pulls people in is not going to be, crying about not having any money when people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a day in their buildings.
Exactly. Exactly. 3 billion. So I don't know how up to date it is. 3 billion for Genshin Impact globally. So that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And it is a very hard sale. Or like when people defend these practices that, oh well the game is free, so they have to get you somewhere else. But again, they shouldn't have to trick you into spending money.
Yeah, like okay, every game needs to make money, and if you're doing it free, okay, well we got to come up with a way to make money. How are we going to do that? People love DLC. DLC is great. Cosmetics are great. Doing things like multiple currencies and subversive tactics like that, you don't have to do them. They work, they make a lot of money, but like
Mm-hmm.
for like you could totally do, there's games that do it well without being so subversive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they exist, those models are there, and you totally do them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a kind of I'm worried what the new future models are going to look like.
Yeah. And to Joe's comment about how the big names will dictate the market. I mean,
Yeah,
that is basically the mobile
yeah,
industry for the past 10 years.
yeah,
Any new game that does something differently or introduces a new monetization will inevitably be folded into all the other games. Again, Dead by Daylight didn't start out with cosmetic purchases or
nope.
with a season pass. And lo and behold, when we saw Fortnite kind of was, I think, the first game to kind of blow up with the whole season pass
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
everyone else started to jump in on that.
Right, yeah, and then everybody started changing into that format. It works. It's pretty decent. It is not. It's not the worst. It's not, I mean, most players are, players and consumers understand that development costs have gone up.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a lot. Live services take a lot to operate to keep running. Most players will be happy to like support it by a cosmetic, something like that, keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are specifically lying to the player, or like they don't even know what they're spending it's worth, what the pool's going to be, the characters have no value because they create this nebulous value or this nebulous currency and exchange rates. That's really deceptive, and we can do much better than that.
Yeah. And like we said, there's nothing wrong with getting money for your content. Again, any game that releases months and years of content for free is not going to survive. Like,
You know,
you can't keep putting content in your game for free and there's no more money. This is one of the things that, again, Valve talked about in their 2012 GDC talk, that no matter how great Team Fortress 2 did retail, if you are thinking about doing quote unquote endless development on a game, that retail money is going to go away eventually. And again,
yeah,
it depends on how much work you put into it. So at some point, you need to decide, how am I going to earn money with this? And there's a reason, again, why a lot of people looked to Team Fortress 2 as one of the best examples. That a lot of the content in that game is either free, or you'll earn it just by randomly playing the game. If you want
mhm,
to purchase something, there is a direct cost. If I want, this soldier helmet, it's $1.49. If I want this new hat for the scout, it's $3.55. There's an actual cost, and there's no obscuring that. It is in real dollars.
yeah, and that's why people will law that, say it, and go back and say that was a way that it will work. I think most of the player base understood. Little purchases here and there we're going to support. The game community is massive, right? Community is
Mm-hmm.
important in online games. So of course, buying a hat, hey, it'll support servers cost and things like that. People are down for it, and plus, I think they got to create their own mods, right? User
Mm-hmm.
created content.
Yep.
They were able to do that too, so they could make hat models and sell them in Team Fortress too. So it was a whole little currency thing going on that worked well.
Mm-hmm. And I think, to a point that you just said about people wanting to support these games, that you can tell, I think, in some cases, when the developers care enough about the game. Where, again, there is monetization, but it's not viewed as the developer trying to rip you off or manipulating you into spending it. And it's, I think, a very tricky line for a lot of these games to walk. Like right now with Arknights, again, they're having their big event. There's a limited time character, which I managed to get in 30 pools, which in of itself is a small miracle right there. But when I look on Twitter, when I look on, comments and stuff from people who play this game, no one's angry about not getting these characters. No one is, screaming, I just spent $700 and I got nothing. Go F yourself at these developers. Like, a lot of the people kind of like, again, I feel like they treat the monetization as kind of like a necessary evil. That it's not
Right.
the developer who wants to do this. It's kind of like, like the monetization's like the dark shadow, but
Yeah.
we just ignore it and focus on the game.
Right. Okay, justifying it, the game wouldn't be able to exist or work because it's the only monetization that will work and support it. So we gotta live with it. So
Mm-hmm.
okay, that makes sense. Because I've been trying to wrap my head around the acceptance that I've been noticing with people, like you're saying, they're
Mm-hmm.
on those pools, they weren't getting mad, and I really didn't. Especially around like nobody in Diablo Immortal when it came out, nobody was like literally no one was upset. There was a few like we did a podcast discussing it, some,
Mm-hmm.
discussing it, but the overwhelming was like positive and people were accepting spending so much on all the predatory tactics. Uh, I think that's what it is in their head. They might be just fine. Okay, for Blizzard to make this big amazing game free to us, we gotta spend a whole lot of money. I guess that's the only way they can. They're justifying it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
And I think a big point about like when we see this like difference between light side and dark side is that, do you introduce something that makes the game better, or do you introduce something that is simply there to get more money out of somebody? And to give you an example of this, in the game of Marvel Strike Force that I played for sometime, it was back in 2016, 2017. When they originally started the game, you just had 1 to 6 stars. And, you get different shards, you level up your characters, you rank them up, get them to 6 stars, you're done. Then in, I think it was 2019, they introduced what was called a red star system, so a double ranking system for these characters. So suddenly you had to roll on a separate loot box to get red stars, and the
Oh,
red stars act as basically like double the ranking. So you could have a 4-star, 5 red star character, or 2-star, 6-star. And it was like, again, like the 6-star or the red stars like massively boosted these characters. So if you got a character, 6-star, 6-star, that character is going to be just completely overpowered for every bit of content in the game. But again, the chance of you getting a really great character and really great red star was very low. And when this was introduced, again, what was the purpose of this from a gameplay point of view? It didn't add new content, it didn't change how you play the game. It was just another price tag to spend in this title.
right. Just another way to extract money from the player base without adding any value um, to the game. So again, that's the dark side.
Mm-hmm. And this is, again, and one of the reasons why I brought Marvel Strike Force was this was one of those games where you had defenders saying, well, they have to charge you for this, and they have to give people a reason to spend money and all that. And it's just like, what? Like, why are you defending like this kind of thing? And I just wonder again how many of those people were like influencers, or they were, the having like the public account or the bonuses from the studios.
Right. Right. I mean, especially then, like when they were doing the changeover, you would have to imagine, streamers were new, YouTubers were new. So
Mhm.
they were probably definitely pushing like social influencers. I mean, they push them hard now, but back then to try and get it like, hey, let's normalize this change in the economy of our games through like social media. I'm sure that might have been one way they were trying to leverage it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there were stories from Wargaming that they put pressure on their influencers not to talk bad about the game, or if you did, you would get booted from their program. I think Dead
Yeah.
by Daylight has done that, and I think even like Arknights as well. That you're only worth it to us if you say nothing but positive things, and then the second you criticize or you have a problem, you are cast out, never to return.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So not only like are they, they are using the streamers and the influencers also, right, to capitalize
Mm-hmm.
on the market in that way. That's just radical, man.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is why I'm never getting those Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship deals either.
Man, Raid, or maybe NordVPN. We can do Nord.
Yeah. If I ever get like the Raid Shadow Legend, I'm going to pair with my book. Hey, you love Raid Shadow Legends? Here's a book that tells you all the things wrong with it. Here, buy this book.
Perfect, Josh. Perfect.
Now, with kind of like the manipulation of these games, when we see titles add new content or add new layers to it, this is one of the things that I talked about, and it's one of the things I think I spoke with Ramin about, that you need to be very mindful when you add new monetization to a game. And what we mean by that is, let's say after 2 years, we add in another rarity level. Or in some cases, again, adding in a battle pass to a game that was not launched with it. And this is one of the things that we talked about with kind of the live service, that you have to walk on eggshells when it comes to adding in new monetization. For again, everyone remembers Payday 2, that they had a huge fallout when they introduced loot boxes after
Yeah.
saying that we were never going to do loot boxes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it didn't take very long, and then eventually we were doing a lot of loot boxes in Overwatch. But yeah, I remember the Payday 2. Like, we were still trying to fight it then. The Payday 2, like, I mean, people didn't want to play it because of the loot boxes and stuff. Because it's a paid game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You buy the game, you pay it. So that, of course, is just like the most repulsive version of it. When you pay full price for a game, and then you pay in-game app purchases for. I don't know they were guns. Did they affect gameplay in any way in Payday 2? I couldn't remember.
I don't think so. I think they were pure
No
cosmetic.
cosmetics, right? But even then, I mean,
And again, like cosmetics, that's another big point. How many people have defended this stuff saying, oh, yes, it costs $50 or $100, but it's not gameplay affecting, so it's perfectly fine. Not
yeah.
so much.
Well, how do you feel about that? Just because sometimes I feel like, okay, how many ways other than cosmetics, and then well, DLC and stuff like that, but like cosmetics as a whole, I feel that there's a least offensive of all the evils because at least they're creating something and you could wear it. I mean, I think it's the least of all of them, probably, maybe second least of the offensive. But what's your stance on it?
My problem is when there is no free option or no way for a free player to get this
Get it?
content.
Gotcha.
That if you want to sell skins, that's fine. But either A, have skins in the game that can be unlocked for free, or B, allow the player to earn, the cosmetics currency through playing the game. So again, like I'm not expecting to get, for free every skin when they come out. But if I'm playing this game for 6 months, a year, 2 years, I should be able to at least afford a hat without spending
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, you should be able to, I mean, whatever happened to just farming the mats and then crafting the hat yourself? I
Mm-hmm.
don't,
And again, that was the beauty about Team Fortress, is that you get this simply just by playing.
playing exactly, and that's way cool. That's like a bonus, right? Instead of
Mm-hmm.
like a detriment, that's a bonus. You got it just for playing, right? So it's more positive than it is negative. That it's something that we do have to participate as an accepted evil of this game, right? Um,
Mm-hmm. And again, there's a reason why, while these games are the ones that are more celebrated, have a lot of free events and free stuff, is that they want to give you a reason to support this game. They want you to feel like, okay, look at all the stuff I'm getting. Yeah, I can spend $4.99 here or 10.99 there. But when you're just hit with it every single second, when every screen you go on has some kind of monetization mechanic or system attached to it, it feels like, again, like you're at a casino and they are trying to get you for every nickel and dime that you have.
Yeah, and the worst I don't, the worst part is, like I said, my kids. So like I have an 8-year-old and he's there on the tablet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these games, like the way they're you know how you wrote the book, Josh,
Mm-hmm.
but and I'm seeing these tactics on my kid, and it's I'm like this can't be right, and the only way is that, like, how can I pull it away from him when it already has his tendrils in him, right? Of course, we have to make sure he's not buying things, but he's already getting sucked into like the algorithm of how that's how games work, right? It's
Yeah.
not that there was not a time that games didn't have battle passes and transactions, and that is the game. That's how games work, right? So the sad part is, like, we have this younger generation growing up with this casino type games in their hand, and again, everybody, most people are playing. Me and you, or people watching this, are not like true. The gamers now are like, it's on mobile, right? Those where
Mm-hmm.
most games are being played. That's where the money's being made. And so that's where and it's really, preying on the children and programming up this way. I'm gonna have to run for Congress, Josh.
There we go. Yeah, me too.
Me and you, bud.
Yeah. And again, this is one of the major points Ramin has spoken about a lot, and how a lot of these games are introducing gambling mechanics and gambling design to children, to people who don't have an understanding of what
At all.
probability means, or all they see is, flashy sign, get free currency, but you have to spend an extra $30 for that.
Right. I was trying to explain to my 5-year-old, because it was like it was a game, but to play it, you have to sub to it, and he didn't understand that I was not going to pay 18.99 or the sub just to try it out. He didn't even, like, he wouldn't even know if he liked the game or not, but he just saw it and he was like, I want this subscription. But it's like they'll do that, and so they can use even like the parents, right? Like, okay, well, I got to get this game for my kid so he'll stop crying, and any kind of tactic they can to use. So
Yeah. And again, it's why the issue of cosmetics is such a big deal. Like, for a kid, if you
yeah,
don't get your favorite Naruto skin or your favorite football skin or whatever for a character,
there we go.
it feels like, the world is over, especially if all your friends have it. And again, we've heard horror stories of people being bullied for not having, the right Fortnite skins and stuff like that. And as we've said all along in this discussion, like, this is not aimed at us. Like, we are adults. We don't care if we don't look like a Naruto or Darth Vader in Fortnite. But it's for the people who feel like their life is over if they don't spend for these characters. And like I said in that post, there's always a new overpowered character coming next month or by the end of this year. You enjoyed that skin? There's another one. There's another one coming, and it just never stops.
Yeah, and then now, of course, because it's one of the biggest industries, like bigger than movies, right? They take movie properties, they can take TV properties, and they can pop those in there. So whatever's popular, pop culture, whatever that the kids are into, they throw it in there. Like, I've seen Fortnite skins, and I've had to Google who that person was because I don't even I didn't know, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's how it works.
Yep. Again, collaboration events are huge money.
Huge
Art
money.
Knights did one with Rainbow Six. I think this was like 2 years ago. They have
Hmm.
one with Capcom. Dead by Daylight just announced they're doing another Capcom promotion where they're going to put, I think, Wesker in Dead by Daylight, and they did
Wow.
Attack on Titan as well. And
Oh
again,
man,
like
Wesker.
corporate synergy at its finest.
Right. And you know what? As a side point, I don't know if we brought it up on a previous podcast, but I always wanted to say that about indie devs should collaborate, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're all like, and I talk to a lot of devs, and always talking to, every now about collaborating, getting my character into your game, my character,
Mm-hmm.
just some type of synergy. because hey, they're doing it, but it works well. Like because we lift each other up, you know. So
Yeah, in Blasphemous, they had the character from Bloodstain as like a special event. Shovel Knight's been featured in a lot of indie games. Super
yeah,
Meat Boy.
Meat
When the
Boy,
Super Meat Boy came, they had like a lot of the other like Flash platformers characters
right?
be in that.
Oh
So yeah,
man,
there is definitely room for that. That could be a topic to discuss more
definitely,
about, more
definitely.
like indie dev collaborations.
Yeah, you know, and we've spoke about this before. You know, like we're not in competition, so more collaborations, you know, the better. You know, we're not collaborating with each other as indie devs. It's just we're fighting noise, things like that, but not each other, right? So
Mm-hmm.
collaboration. The more that we collaborate, the better. It works. There's a reason that massive companies are doing it, right? It's not because
Mm-hmm.
it's fun. It's because it works.
Yeah. And going back to your example with your son playing like those kinds of games, like one of the big examples that Ramen was telling me about was the Marvel Superhero Squad game. Like everyone, like that was one of those things. Like the Superhero Squad, like it was like huge for like 3 4 years, and then it just faded away. I'm not sure how many people remember that, but there was an online game for it. And in that online game, in order to roll for more currency, you had to spin a roulette wheel. And that's a roulette wheel in a game aimed at, 8 and younger. So you're teaching children about roulette and getting them
Yeah.
to spin a wheel. And that should be raising some red flags and some heads right now.
Right. In one of the it's Endless Runner that my 8-year-old was playing in between to get a perk, you have to spin a roulette wheel. Like I think if you
Mm,
failed, like you would spin a roulette wheel. If not, you'd like had a I don't know, but it was in there in between as a mechanic, like as a failure or failure or success mechanic in the game,
mm-hmm.
right? And this is targeted at children. So
Yeah.
yeah, not cool, man.
No, it's not. And again, it's that case of having elements in the game just in virtue to earn money. Like there is no value to the player. And again, we can, somewhat rationalize when we talk about character in Genshin Impact or Arknights or a skin in any of these games that there is something tangible within the game itself. If I get that
Right.
new skin, I put on my favorite character. If I get that new 6-star, I can put that on my team. But again, though, it's how they're being treated, how the content is being balanced around that. That is when we get into some more of these dark side practices.
Yeah,
Again, like
yeah. Go no, go ahead.
I just feel like when we talk about some of these games that have like 0.75 chance, 0.75% chance, or even a 2% chance of getting a 6-star, and if 2% is considered high,
That's high. That's
I,
high. High
I,
drop rate.
I feel like there is something wrong with having those two sentences in a video game.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I lost it like in a regular MMO when I was getting, no pay, you're just fighting a mob and the drop rate of the item was like 0.01 and it was a thing that I was paying a sub for and that drove me mad. I was like, "Wait, I'm going to have to run this dungeon how many times?" Like that drove me mad. So paying for it and then you're having that, and I think what they just barely passed it where they had to reveal the drop rates. They do
Mm-hmm.
have to do that now legally,
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah,
Yep.
because I mean, before if you don't even know what the rate is, yeah, rip my credit card.
Mm-hmm. Here's probably one of the earliest examples of this. Anyone remember Earthbound for the Super Nintendo?
Yeah.
There was the Gutsy Bat, which was like Ness's ultimate weapon. You could only
Hmm.
get it in one spot. And I looked this up, and the drop rate is a 1 out of 128 chance, or a 0.78% chance of getting that drop.
Wow.
And again, like we said, like there's a difference if you put something in as a cute Easter egg or a little bonus versus saying, here's this amazingly powerful character item that's going to be required. You have a 0.65% chance of getting it for every $5 you spend in this game.
Wow, yeah. Unbelievable.
And I am, of course, one thing I mentioned VIP systems is another big example that the more you spend in a game, your VIP level goes up, which gets you additional perks. So the more you spend, the more you
Yeah.
get as a bonus. And
Yes.
that definitely I talk about this in my post and as well as in the book. Like, that is not ethical. That is
That's like,
you are spending money, and the game is basically becoming better for you.
yeah. Yeah, that one is real spicy. I don't know how you can defend that in any way. It's just only if you spend money does the game become better for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know what else to say to that, Joshua. That's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, and the problem I think again with this balance is trying to spot when a game goes dark side with its practices.
Yeah.
Because I think this is something I talk about with Shark, that like it's not a black and white issue that it's either fair or manipulative. It's always on a scale or a spectrum of 100% free, 1% horribly monetized and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's the point what Joe said. Again, that's right there. It's the reason why slot machines don't get jackpots every 5 pulls.
But there will be the masochists, like the defenders, that will be like that drop. If you raise a drop rate, they will get mad. They will be upset because like the drop rate needs to be low because that is a part of the game, right? Like you can't even like if you raise the drop rate, like you said, it's not fun anymore. It takes away the rush or whatever. So part of it is that masochism. It's like kind of built into it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how many? Again, it's the same thing with slot machines. It's not just you pull a thing and it says you win, you lose.
You win,
You
yeah,
get you get all the animation and you watch the things
right.
light up.
Right. Noises and sounds and clanks and all kind of stuff. Particle effects,
Yeah,
drinks.
all the gotcha games they have different animations for 1,
Good
3,
animations.
5, whatever
Yeah.
star characters, and again, it's about getting that dopamine, that rush of, oh my god, I'm starting to see like the brief green hue that means it's going to be a 6 star, but no, wait,
Yes.
now it's turning yellow, which means it's going to be a 4 star, but no, it's a
Oh,
fake out.
yeah, and I was watching my 8-year-old and he it was kind of a loot box and he was freaking out watching it open and he just was and I'm like, oh no, this is not good.
Mm-hmm. Again, like with something like Dragon Ball Legends, they have multiple animations, and they have fake out animations, and none of that
Hey,
is gameplay affecting, but it's designed to catch your eye. It's designed to condition you to get
yeah,
excited. So when you
yeah,
see that brief hint of a 6 star or a legendary drop, you want to get that again
yep,
and again, and then here's my credit card, here's my mortgage, and
yep.
here's my firstborn,
Lord, my second.
like Diablo Immortal.
For sure does.
hmm Now, one thing we didn't touch on, and as a time check, we are just over an hour. I figure maybe another 10 to 15 minutes at least for
Okay.
the topics that I have. One thing that I wanted to mention, the black market for cosmetics and purchases like this. For a lot of the more competitive driven games or games that are focused heavily on cosmetics, we've seen a black market develop around selling these skins. Counter Strike is a huge example. Dota, I think Call of Duty may have it as well. This is something for, I think, traditional developers or those who aren't really interested in the live service side, but maybe just more in the cosmetic side. You should be keeping an eye on in terms of what people are doing like this, because it does. This is where we get, I think, very much into the gambling side. When someone is spending money to maybe get a really good skin, or people are buying and selling content. I think this was one of the major impetuses for Steam to introduce, trading within the
Yeah,
Steam platform. And then they introduced additional rules so you couldn't scam someone for the items.
definitely.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Game in the Chat. And again, this was one thing you have to keep track of. And one of the things that I know Ramin talked about when he was going to work with Blizzard, this was during the era of when gold farming became very prevalent, is that even if you stop it, that doesn't kill it. That just simply makes it go into the back rooms, and people
Yeah.
will do it, in that gray or black market.
Yeah. Yeah, like yeah, if you don't regulate it, it's still going to happen, right? It's going to happen whether you regulate it or not. If you regulate it, and maybe if you allow it somehow and you are able to control it,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll have control of it. But if you say no, it's illegal, I have no control of it, it's going to happen in the, like you said, in the dark back rooms, and then nobody can do anything about it, right? And that really will affect the economy. And I mean, that's real people's money that's being affected, right?
Yep.
So yeah.
And I think this is one of those bigger points that even if you don't care about monetization, if you introduce content that has a value, there is a quote unquote virtual economy for your game. You need to be aware of it, and you need to basically officially say yay or nay to it.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
do say nay, then you have to make that a hard, line made out of bricks and stone for
Yeah.
your game.
Yeah, and either way, you're gonna have to set up like infrastructure to like
Mm-hmm.
protect both ways, right? If it's illegal, you're gonna have to be ready for like the farmers and the bots, and how am I gonna stop that? If it is legal, okay, well then we have regulations and rules, and either way, it's gonna take effort to maintain because again, this is real people's money. It matters. So you can't just play loose like that.
Yep. And again, there are people who have sued companies
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
Roblox, like Fortnite, and a lot of the mobile games for, hey, my son tried to buy something and he spent
Wow.
he spent like thousands of dollars and he didn't get it, or they got
Uh,
scammed and you didn't do anything about it. Because
yeah.
again, if you're the game, in this case, I guess going back to the casino analogy, it would be like having like a miniature casino inside a casino.
Yeah.
You are still liable, even if you say, "Oh, we don't do any of that." It's still your game. The content is still being used in your title. See.
Okay.
Stuff like tracker, and again, it's hard to put your finger on. I think for a lot of these games when it goes off the rails, but it is something you have to consider. How much is something like this supposed to get out of it? And this again goes back to our major point. There should be a max. I would say there should be a min and max spend for this content.
Yep.
Again, one of the big points about gotchas is that people will defend it and say, well, I did one pull and I got this character. Someone spent 800 pulls, they didn't get it. So it's fair. No, like,
No.
there should be, like, first off, I think the whole idea of a pity system should be standardized. That if you spend X amount of money, just give the person that character.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we also then need to establish what should be a fair pity. Again, going back to Arc Knights, should a limited time character cost $990 if you don't get lucky with the pool? I just, again, like, from a balancing standpoint, again, as a game developer, do you think like a content should be worth $990
No.
that you put into a game?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. It's not. There's literally nothing. I mean, what virtual thing is worth that much? Like,
And again, like the other point that I said, that if you honestly can rationalize and explain to me that this is worth 990 or 400 for $5,000, how are you balancing your game
yeah.
around something that
Yeah.
can cost thousands of dollars?
Right. And again, I mean that's just a red flag for that. It's
Mm-hmm.
designed around it's a casino extraction process. It's not really a game meant for you to like enjoy. It's meant to trick you and prey on people who are vulnerable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep, and we discussed that point earlier, Avery, about how people are conditioned or they
Yeah.
want to, if everyone in your friends group likes this character and you don't have that
Hmm.
skin, you're the social pariah now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, you don't even like, you remember if you didn't have the right shoes when you were in school or the right t-shirt. Well, now your character has to have those things too. And
Hmm.
so,
Yeah. For me, like I could never wear like the fancy sneakers I had to wear because I have a bad leg. I had to have surgery on my leg. I have to wear special. I have to wear sneakers that are designed for people with bad feet. So I could never wear like the
same
fancy.
here. Same here. Yeah. Same
Yep.
thing. I had surgery on my right leg,
Mm-hmm.
on my
Yep. Me
right leg.
too.
There you go. See?
Yeah. So
Josh and Josh.
we were out. We were not the cool kids with the fancy high tops
We
there.
did not have fancy items.
Oh man, I'm feeling old again as we talk about this.
Always wanted to pump it up, man. So,
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's see. Game. Yeah, and again, like DLC that adds direct content. That is a no. That is when we talk more about light side.
that's the light
That
side.
that if you are selling me, I spend $5, I get 8 new stages, 3 new skins, 2 new whatevers. Okay, you have a set price tag on it. Again, with something like with Dead by Daylight, that if a chapter is $6.99, what do I get? I get a new survivor, a new killer, the perks. Okay, it's whether you feel that is worth it or not. That's still a set price. When you go to a gacha game, and again, if a gacha has a 2% chance of dropping, what is that character worth? What again? Like we can say that a skin could be worth $15, $20, but what? How much do you put a price tag on a 6-star character?
Right. And then like, okay, how many characters can a game have, right? How can I keep adding characters? Can I keep adding 6-star characters? Because I clearly don't care about balance, right? I only care about your wallet. So how many characters can I add? How many skins can I add? Like, you know what I mean? So we have to have like values and like of all of those, right? Like minimum a character should have a standard, minimum a chess piece should have a standard price. You know what I mean? And this
Mm-hmm.
is like we're really like giving up like inches and miles here.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about this, like we shouldn't even be here in this realm. Like Armis was saying, like DLC and things like that. That's how most gamers like it, right? We like to
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to support the studio, I'll buy a DLC for it. That would be great. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the dark side. And
Mm-hmm.
so in the dark side, it's just all predatory, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
sadly, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. And again, there's a difference when we look at games that feature original characters, and they may add in a new character maybe once every 2 to 3 months, maybe once every 6 months. Where a lot of the licensed games, they will add like dozens of characters every few weeks.
Yeah.
The Marvel games are very infamous for this. Anytime there's a new TV show, a new movie, those characters are going to be put into every single Marvel game that's out there. They did that with Strike Force. They did that with what was that Marvel Avengers game, the Naughty Dog one. They added in Black Panther and so on.
Mm-hmm.
With the Dragon Ball Legends game, I looked this up. They're saying there's over 400 different characters in the Dragon Ball Legends game. I'm pretty sure at least 300 of those are Goku. Right there.
Wow, that's wild.
I wanted to look this up really quickly. How many characters are in Contest of Champions? Because in Contest of Champions, it's not just the Marvel characters. You also have the 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6-star versions of said character. So there are so many characters in that game. And again, like, what is the point of having so many characters?
Yeah. Other than to extract money from your consumers, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure, right? I mean, like, I really don't think you need that many. Like, even depending on the game, 400, right? Is what you said.
Mm-hmm.
That's way too many. Like, everything is going to be duplicate. I don't even know who could balance it. Like, none of it.
And is it going to be interesting to play, or is it just going to be a case of
Yeah.
pick 3 6-star characters, I win?
Yeah, just pick any random 3 6s and you win. As long as you have random 6 stars,
Mm-hmm.
you win. So yeah, how interesting is that in the long run anyway?
Mm-hmm. And
Just
again, it leads to that endless scale. We can
yeah.
always add a new character.
Hmm.
If the best character in 2015 had, attack of 100, maybe we make it in 2016 150 or
Right.
200. I'm sure everyone remembers that Battlefield Heroes game. I still remember that piece they wrote. They did like a presentation on Oracle. They were saying like, we weren't earning all that money, but when we started to introduce pricing to our guns and we had allowed people to buy better guns, the game became profitable. Can you believe that? And like we said, this stuff works. It works exceedingly well, but
Scary, scary. Well,
it should not be the norm. There should
yeah,
be limits.
yeah, yeah. It's scary how easy our psyche, we're able to prey on our psyche.
Mm-hmm.
It's we have it down to a science, and there's people who are working on it, and it's being refined. Like as we speak, it's being refined. As people right now are playing games, it's being refined. There's data, AI's crunching algorithms and making it. How much more can we increase this guy's FOMO? And they're working on it. And I mean, go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say again, Activision Blizzard developed the matchmaking monetization system,
Yes, yes, the matchmaking mod. That's right. That's
where
right.
they track how much you spend, and then they will matchmake you up against people who either have your counter, so you are feeling like, oh well, now I gotta spend money to compete, or they'll match you against where you have the counter, and
Mm-hmm.
guess what? You can feel amazing. You got all that value out of that $10 purchase. So
Yeah,
spend
and
more.
that one feeling good about that one $10 purchase, and you just wreck the other team. You're like, oh, it all works now. And then say you lose the next round, well, you're just going to keep trying to get that one feeling again, right? Like they got you.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, man,
So I think I
chasing the
am.
dragon.
Yeah. I just have, I think, one final point to end on. So I'll
Let's
go
go
throw
for
it
it.
to you. Do you have anything, any other points or topics
No,
before we
Josh,
move to the
let's
end?
let's end it with you. You got the book on this.
Okay. So my final point about this, and I said this in the book about why this matters. First off, for the consumers, it's about educating you on what are these practices that are being used to manipulate you. It's important to understand, how games are trying to either rip you off or get more money from you.
Yeah,
The other point is that I do feel like we are going to hit that watershed breaking moment.
yeah,
All it's going to take is some high profile example of someone's life being
yeah.
completely ruined for governments to finally, really put their foot down. I mean, some governments are doing that already. I think it's in like Belgium and China that they banned
Yeah.
Diablo Immortal. And they are very anti loot box, very anti predatory games over there. What happens if that gets adopted by other countries? What happens to a lot of these games that are built entirely on being predatory? Predatory.
Well, they're just going to have to either shut down because they were poor designs, predatory, or reshape it to something that's more on the light side, which is really not that. These models exist. It's totally possible, right? I believe it's totally
Mm-hmm.
possible to convert your game over from dark side monetization to light monetization. It's there. The monetization is already there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just simply remove the predatory practices, make things more transparent. It's a game. It's for entertainment. It's not a casino, right? We're
Yeah.
we're not. Um, we shouldn't. Also, just a side note, we really shouldn't be accepting it as like this is a part of the gaming world now. Like I said, it's probably going to take like a senator's son
Mm-hmm.
or daughter like doing something, just like spending their entire money on Clash of Clans or something, and then and then maybe we'll start seeing something, right? Until some
Yeah.
giant watershed event happens, we do have to stay vigilant, be aware, educate others, right? You know what I mean? As
Mm-hmm.
people in this podcast that are watching are definitely more aware and more in tune. So, educate others, right, about it, and let them know about the practices. Buy Josh's book so you can explain it to them, tell them what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Something like that, because we have to be, they are preying upon us through these
Mm-hmm.
practices, and we have to be aware and got to let grandma know. We got to let grandpa know. We got to let our nieces know. And so that's one of our jobs.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's okay to earn money. It's not okay to be earning thousands and thousands of dollars off of, a $5 skin, or, trying to say that this character is worth $3,000 and things like
Right.
that. And
Right.
yeah, to Avery's comment, that it will probably take, much like setting up, the commission for gambling,
Yeah.
that, if the government gets involved, a lot of these games are going to, be taken out very quickly. Again, the Marvel Superhero Squad game, when Congress was starting to look at games, they immediately, turned that game off because they knew that they weren't doing something by the book.
Yeah, I mean, just they're gonna have to change that. That's it. Like that, if when the laws do change, they're gonna have to just adapt your game, or fall out, because really they don't games like. And again, when we're talking about games, like every game needs to make money to profit,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're there's nothing wrong with that. It's just predatory practices, on the vulnerable, on the weak, people that don't know any better, and just like providing content that has no value over content. Just all of the Skinner box things that they do and tricks like that. We can totally do better, and we need to, and we have to.
Mm-hmm. Oh, jeez. Yeah. Again,
Oh my
like,
gosh! Wow.
and for us, like, we didn't grow up with these games, thankfully.
No.
Like, the closest we got was when Skylanders blew up with the
Yeah.
Toys to Life market. And
Yeah. Yeah.
thankfully, I was past that in terms of childhood for that. But again, for the adults, the version of that is Warhammer and spending
Right.
money on all
Right.
those models. But I think that is it for me. So again, if you're interested more in learning about free-to-play, monetization, and so on, my book, Game Design Deep Dive Free-to-Play, is coming out, I believe, on the 17th, or it's going to ship after the 17th. Make sure to buy at least 10 copies to prove that you are a super VIP. And make
Right.
sure to send me images for anyone who
Right.
buys at least
Right.
10.
And the more books you buy, the better his books get. Each book gets better. Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. And then for me,
yep.
my links are down below. Follow me on Twitter, Wishlist Samurai Pig. Watch me on Twitch, and that's about it.
Yep, and that's down below as well.
Down below.
You can follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, Patreon, all that. Information is up there. There should be links down below. Predatory book selling, exactly. And come back. And if you do have a topic for us to cover for a future show, please let us know in the comments. And come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Oh, and I almost forgot, if you want to catch these shows live, they are Saturdays starting around 5 p.m. ET. So we will see you next time, and have a great rest of your weekend. Take care.